Teddy for about 10 years, and I played in some gigs with him. We had jam sessions at his house, and I've been playing, like I said, since a little kid, and it was fun to be with Teddy because he was on the top shelf. He's a personality you won't see too often anymore. So, and he was multi-talented. He was a yachtsman too. I think a lot of people know that too. So, and he's one of the few nowadays that can make he made a living at being a musician, and then he made a living at being a yachtsman. So, hats off to him. You know, during this life, he had 2 careers actually. So that's quite an accomplishment.
I've been Teddy's student for the last 6 years. He's a trip.
Yeah.
Real old school kind of guy, you know?
Yeah.
In all the right ways. He had a lot of ideas in his playing that you don't hear a lot anymore. It's gonna be a whole different scene without him around. I was taking piano lessons before I met Ted, but when I started taking lessons with him is when I really switched over to the vibes.
You know, Monk Street?
Yeah. Oh, great tune.
Hey, Grant. Monk Street.
When Teddy got back into playing full-time instead of sailing that marvelous schooner around the Caribbean and every place, we did a gig at the Vanguard, a week at the Vanguard, with Chris Byers, the arranger. We also recorded 2 records, Dances with Bulls and Bopography, two records, and worked at the Iridium as well. So we did quite a bit of playing in that period of time. In fact, I had just spoken to him a couple of weeks ago to do a big gig at the Charlie Parker Festival in August. So the people who ran the festival agreed that it might be a good idea to have somebody who actually worked with Charlie Parker to be at the festival, and he came right on board. I was able to get his favorite piano player, Harold Danko, and Teddy was, he agreed to things so fast that I was worried that it had gone too smoothly for him to take the gig. And sure enough, it's terrible that we couldn't do one more hit. He did things on his own terms. I mean, he was really quite an example of a guy who really, just decided to do things and did them. And of course, a fantastic career in music, and then just walked away from it all to do what he really wanted to do at that moment for 30 years, a long moment.
I met him out here when he was getting an award for jazz, and I just wondered why a ship captain was getting an award for jazz, and then I realized this was the great Teddy Charles. I had heard of the name because I'm kind of a jazz fan, and he was just a great personality that I started to hang out with him. He was fun to be with. And I went on his boat, he invited me over for a jam session because I was like kind of a wannabe musician, and I couldn't really play a lot of jazz with a lot of guys except for a guy like him who was very inviting and accepting, and just he wasn't concerned with if you learned it in school or what level you were at, as long as you loved the music, and that was what I liked about him. He liked the heart, and he was all heart, and that's why he kind of lived in a rundown house sometimes, a bunch of dogs, and sometimes he could look unsightly or like he just dressed in anything, but he was all just like pure energy, always he stayed very youthful. He died at 84, but he was like a young man through life.
And what did you play?
I played trump, I played bass, I played a number of instruments, but I stopped playing music in my life because I had to get a day job. And meeting him, it revived it because he was non-judgmental and he was so inspiring because of who he was, you know.
Yeah.
And the guy played with Mingus and everyone else, and he would play with you. And if he liked the spirit of your playing, he'd encourage you, and he did it to me, and it got me right back into music, man. It totally changed my life in that way.
Wow.